manufacturing companies should be held responsible for the BPA health effects passed down to victims through epigenetics. Therefore, any offspring who are infertile and or diagnosed with cancer should be protected by law. Epigenetics serves as a link between the drug the mothers received and their offspring because their prenatal environment severely disrupted their development. The existence of epigenetics, while a controversial idea, is proven through rat experiments. This makes the manufacturers accountable for the public health according to FDA policies. The outcomes of previous lawsuits further the argument even further, leading us to believe the manufacturers must be guilty.
Alright, so the rats, alright, people want to say that epigenetics is controversial, but the evidence is very conclusive in support of that epigenetics is a real thing. So, the rats, alright, roll the mice. So, to have them have the same genetic code, right, you gotta breed them, inbreeding, so that they have the same genetic code. So basically, the nature is the same, but you're gonna change the nurture, right? So the nature versus nurture. Alright, so the only variation can be the nurture. So when there's a difference, alright, it's gonna be because of the maternal diet, alright, and that's what they found in Morgan et al. In 1999. So there was one mouse that was fed a methyl-rich diet, alright, and when this mouse had offspring, it had healthy offspring, which were brown and the weight was normal. But the mouse that was fed methyl-poor, right, had a methyl-poor diet, then that mouse, or that's the offspring of that mouse had very obese offspring, and they were yellow. Now, people thought that only genes were passed down from parent to offspring, but this supports the idea that environmental factors can also be transmitted through generations.
So when products are manufactured, the FDA has a policy that ensures the safety of the public's usage of those products. So according to the FDA in 2015, they stated that when companies fail to meet their responsibilities and violate the law in a way that jeopardizes public health, the FDA can and will move decisively. So this standard enforces that the statement that the manufacturing company should be held responsible for the cancer and infertility found in the offspring of the affected parents. So this is important because Americans believe that they're protected under this policy. Therefore, the proper protocols should be taken place if there is a jeopardy in the safety and of affected manufacturing products.
So, in a specific case of Mainan versus Eli Lilly and Company, a court found medical research that showed DS, another drug that was taken during pregnancy, could cause physical abnormalities in reproductive tracts of animals that were exposed to the drug in utero, and this was concrete evidence of the harm in animals due to epigenetic evidence, and the same conditions were ruled comparable in humans for this case. So, furthermore, in another famous case, Enright versus Eli Lilly and Company, Eli Lilly was also ruled liable to those who ingested the DES drug or who were exposed in utero. So that includes the offspring. And because the offspring were in utero when the BPA drug was ingested, they too should be held under the same standards as both of these cases by law.
We firmly believe that manufacturers of plastics should not be held responsible for the health effects experienced by the group of 30 people. For starters, we believe that a group as small as 30 people does not have the legal grounds to make these allegations against big company manufacturers of plastics. The group of 14 men and 16 women allege that their health problems were a direct result of in utero exposure that came from plastic products consumed by their pregnant mothers. We do not believe that epigenetics alone accounts for these forms of testicular disease or ovarian cancer, including cancer, infertility, and other diseases that these people experienced. There are various other factors, such as diet, that may have contributed to the DNA methylation that these people experienced. According to the research paper, The Ghost in Our Genes, Legal and Ethical Implications of Epigenetics, dietary factors that affect the methylation process have also been found to affect disease risk through epigenetic mechanisms. This paper also states diets lacking methionine, folate, or other methyl donors have been shown to lead to reduction in methylation across the entire genome in rats, producing an increase in tumor formation. Diet has an effect on cancer and tumor formation and can likely be a cause of diseases and cancers experienced by the groups. It is not fair for plastic manufacturers to solely be held responsible when there are clearly other causes involved.
Other factors that contribute to the alteration of the DNA methylation process include environmental factors and toxins. For example, environmental factors can include but aren't limited to stress, weather, and traumatic experiences that your mother may have had while she was pregnant in her third trimester. For example, in the BBC The Ghost in Your Genes 2006 video, they talked about the effect that 9/11 had on women who were pregnant in their third trimester and how it affected their children. By them being exposed to that amount of stress, they suffered with PTSD, and their children were reported to have increased amounts of cortisone in their saliva. And like we learned in our last lesson, cortisol affects their amount of stress, just like it did on the rats, it did with the kids as well. So they weren't able to respond as well to the stress. Toxins can include many things like pollution in the air and pesticides from fruits and vegetables. According to the research paper, The Ghost in Our Genes, Legal and Ethical Implications of Epigenetics, although DES has been banned for several decades, other endocrine disruptors chemicals may operate through epigenetic mechanisms to adversely affect human health. For example, vinclozin, a fungicide used in a number of crops such as grapes and strawberries, includes a wide variety of adverse effects, including spermagenetic abnormality effects, male infertility, breast cancer, and kidney disease in animals not only in the first generation, but also in 2 generations throughout. So that is referring to what these people are claiming to have effects on like testicular cancer, breast cancer, sperm count, and things of that nature. It can be affected from the toxins that the parents may have taken in through pesticides that weren't banned yet during that time, or pesticides that they could have taken in that they didn't know they were taking in. So you can't blame your parents or the company, the BPA company, saying that it came from them, because it can include other factors, simply toxins and your environmental factors. And like she said before, your diet contribute to the demethylation and methylation of certain genes that cause cancers and infertility.
Okay, so you said that they don't have grounds to sue. The Seventh Amendment says that, from the Constitution, that all you need is the price you'd end up getting, I guess, would be $20, but in today's, which would be $5,000. This case is clearly going to be more than $5,000. So even though the size of the plaintiffs is pretty small, in the sense that it's 30 people, all that matters is how much they're going to end up receiving. Now, I understand that you were saying enough people in the sense that scientifically, but at least on the grounds of suing, they have the right to sue.
And even with the scientific side of it, while it's true there should have been a bigger study, and the resources that they had might not have been allowed them to do that, and also the fact that the people that did sue had a much higher percentage of cancers, especially reproductive cancers, than people that average everyday people who weren't ever exposed to the environmental factors that they were put into. It just shows that there is still a possibility of epigenetics causing these cancers. It doesn't mean that it's not the other factors don't play a role, but that epigenetics still plays a major role in it. And also with the endocrine blockers that the endocrine blockers severely impact how the body works. So saying that even though the drug or the chemicals at the time weren't illegal, manufacturers should still be held accountable for using those types of chemicals and drugs that do affect epigenetic, how genes are passed down and how their children react. They should be held accountable for those effects, even though the drug at the time or the chemicals at the time were not banned substances. So
I'll just add one more thing. Also, you guys kept talking about all these other different things. They're all related in the sense that they were affected by the manufacturing company. That's how they're all related. So although these other things could impact them, they were all related by one thing. So the chance that all these other things happen to these people is very improbable.
Okay, so in conclusion, Americans should be protected under the current law from companies cutting corners and abusing their power. It's been shown that when companies are not held accountable, there are serious epigenetic effects that can occur because of the number of problems that have risen, such as cancer and other health
we affirm that companies should be held responsible for actions that endanger future generations through their epigenetic effects.
Alright, so as we heard before, many arguments exist that claim to explain why said manufacturers should be held responsible. Some believe that because epigenetic testing reveals hypermethylation upon exposure to BPA, the tumors emerge, and because of that, they know that the company is to blame. BPA alternatives do exist.
Right.
So some believe that could be so the problem could be avoided, but we can refute these arguments.
Because BPA alternatives are actually found to have the same similar kinds of effects to epigenetics that BPA does. However, the whole grounds of your guys' argument was that the parents were exposed to high amounts of BPA, and this caused prenatal birth defects in the children, right? Who are now suing the company, right? However, do we actually have quantifiable data on how much BPA the parents were exposed to? Do we have concrete evidence on how much BPA the average human is exposed to, and how much greater these parents were exposed to in the time they were pregnant, right? Unless we have that kind of evidence, I don't see there being, a strong enough claim from the people suing these companies to say that it is the manufacturer's fault. Because if we were going to blame one manufacturer, the possibility that epigenetic changes can happen from their products, won't we have to blame all companies for producing anything that can change the environment or the diet of a person? We can't hold all companies responsible because that's legally not possible. It's impossible to have an infinite number of lawsuits for how many other businesses there are in the world, right?
Should I continue? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have some examples of what we have to refute the opposing argument. For example, one such is, all cancers feature hypermethylation, tumor genes, and they can be caused by many different kinds of things, not just BPA.
Right.
And many studies showing the epigenetic effects of BPA. Often these kind of tests are done with extreme doses that are not realistic compared to our normal lives. Low dose BPA studies which reflect the current.
Okay. In conclusion, you can't blame the specific BPA company or sue them for having the epigenetic effects that you have now, because you don't know what your parents were exposed to, and there are other factors that contribute to the methylation of the same genes that cause the same cancers that you guys have.